What's up, everybody? I've got the deck list from Ace Arena 4. I haven't had a chance to go over them too in depth because I actually broke my glasses. So this is coming out a bit later than I wanted to. They broke like right after all the glasses stores closed. They broke at like 6 p.m. too. So pretty devastating timing on that. But I'm going to do my best to bring you guys the info on the deck list from Ace Arena 4. First up, we've got Rodan, Giant Monster of the Sky. This time on the Void symbol. We've got the Tri-Gravity Beams in there, Rejuve Smash, Sweeping Daggers. But what's interesting about this one is 4 copies of Aerial Reinforcement. So a little Breaker 1 action, a little more stat pump for all your additional attacks. And every time you peek a card with a keyword, you can set it up so that Aerial Reinforcement will add it to your hand. So that's really cool. I also want to point out the I would like to rage, kind of wild here, but you know, the first one you play doesn't count towards progressive difficulty and it draws you a card. And it also means that your rejuvenating smashes could be EX3 and Powerful 3. And that seems like a great way to cash in on a game ending attack. So pretty cool stuff there. 2 Will of Steel in the main board. Pretty poignant for this event, considering we saw Beauregard basically throw an Irwin to death. That was pretty heartbreaking to watch, unless you're a Beauregard fan. So having the throw hate main board, pretty cool, pretty heads up stuff for this tiny little event that we had. Other than that, got a lot of one-ofs of staples, you know, Genkai's Guidance, Tattered Costume, Military Airship, all the good stuff. 3 Moment of Normalcy, really going out of the way to make sure that we get that unique foundation down. 3 Science Bros as well. So you can see where our mind was at for what the really important, you know, uniques were. All in all, very cool stuff. Wish I could have gotten to see this one, but unfortunately I didn't, so I can't tell you too much more about it. Next up, we have Beauregard Lionette Expositor. This is a water deck. We don't see too many water decks. We've got 1 filled without, 1 military airship, 1 Sean Gilmore to help us pass all those really tough checks. And that's really what we saw this deck. Outside of a game 1, it won game 1, just playing a bunch of really solid throws, not even really using Beauregard's damage pump too often, not really having the foundations to commit, but just being able to put together, you know, consistent offense off a few foundations and generate those extra attacks with Beauregard was really cool. Saw a lot of discarding of those wish hards to get extra card draw. Capture the target is something that, you know, Beauregard can turn on very, very easily. So very awesome stuff. We didn't get to see too much of the double jumbo fist or the teaming with the attack titans. It was a lot of aura slam and shoulder toss, but there was a really sick big fist bash that got played after a runaway to pick up the card that runaway added to the card pool. So there's definitely some sauce there, not to mention the Breaker 3 being kind of a big deal. And we even saw the deflect off acid screen get used. So this deck was full of surprises. Thoughtful Classmate was another really cool one that came out early on in the game, and it's a real thinker for a second there, you know, realizing that those Beauregard attacks are mid attacks. So very awesome stuff. 2 Moment of Normalcy in this one, 2 Condescending Explanation. So again, playing multiple copies of these uniques that are really important to get out onto the board to hopefully keep us alive. But fortunately, our stage got picked apart by Ice Sword Execution, so it wasn't meant to be. Speaking of Ice Sword Execution, this one might be a little hard to read. Let me see if I can zoom in. There, that might be a little bit better. But so we had the no budget event, Irwin. We got to watch this one on stream win a match. It was very cool. It got pressed really early. I was wondering if we had maybe throw hate main board. It looks like we don't even have throw hate sideboarded. Maybe I'm missing it. I mentioned my glasses are broken, so this is a lot harder for me. But one of the things I really liked about this deck, and I like about Irwin in the format right now, is he's so good at blocking, of course, right? He's got the speed reduction on face, Momo shaped speed reduction, gets up to Rodan numbers with these shrewd observations out. But we've also got greater goal, turning our character ability into a flexible damage reduction ability as well. Only 3 greater gold though. Nothing else. You know, this is the order version, not the death version. So we can't really go all in on the damage reduction plan, but seeing Master of Dunking and Fighting makes sense here. Hacker Extraordinaire, really important in this format. I don't know how to pronounce Dwaithfar. I think it's Dwaithfar, the Star Razor. One of my favorites. I thought that card was going to be insane. Just target, seal, you know, a foundation every other turn seemed really, really good. Also, of course, death actions, showdown, runaway, filled with doubts a staple. Very cool stuff. But the real spice of this deck is in the attack lineup. We've got a lot of 2-ofs, a lot of options. You've got Wall Maria's Might or a Killing Intent. Heaven Piercing Ice Wall makes it into this deck, something that we only really saw from the Crystal Lens decks, but we're playing it here as well, which is very cool. Freeze is kind of an underrated, kind of a nebulous ability. It's difficult to really know if you're going to get value out of the freeze ability, so not the most popular, but very cool stuff. Lightning Rod was hyped to see. Irwin's Final Charge came out of nowhere in a super hype moment. We saw a Walk the Dog played as like a 7 difficulty on an 8 as the last attack in hand, and I got so wrapped up in the fact that we Botons a +3 block away to give our rival a +0, which they easily used to live against the Walk the Dog, and then he was like, all right, well, I'm just going to Irwin's sacrifice 12 foundations. You know, he drew the Irwins off during the Walk the Dog, so very, very awesome stuff there. Determined Dive also makes into this one, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it, right? Irwin can essentially turn committed face downs into ready face downs when he gets 3 counters. So building a face down committed is a lot better in this character than other characters. So very cool stuff here. Ice Sword Execution and Walk the Dog should be something we see more often, don't you think? Now we've got an Allura deck that I also wanted to see really bad, but we didn't get a chance to. Unfortunately, this deck ran into TC's Hanji 4 Eyes deck, and it was apparently a pretty bad matchup for it because we've got Tri-Gravity Beams, and that Hanji deck doesn't care too much about having cards in hand. Thunder Spear Strikes, we've got Sweeping Daggers, Reju Smash. These are repeated 100% Smash, and Ice Sword. This is a gnarly attack lineup. This is just banger after banger. Like, these are not attacks that are necessarily working super good together. Repeated 100% Smash and Rejuve are the only punches, so they're like the only things you're going to get to ready off of. But repeated is an EX and powerful move together, and it can shut down breakers and things like that. So very, very interesting to see repeated kind of sneaking its way back into the metagame. A little surprising it left in the first place, but maybe we were just way too focused on getting to ready like 3 foundations with it. Maybe the answer is just play it as an EX powerful move that, you know, it's going to ready at least 1. Like, if it's a 4 diff, 4 high for 6, EX 3 powerful 3, is that not enough? That being said, we get to see a ton of action cards because of the way our character works, so that's always really cool. Something I would expect to see a lot more Allures, I thought, because of that, but the action symbols that she's on might not be the best. I don't know, but we've got I Would Like to Rage, which in this character is just stonks and stonks and stonks. Lover mode makes into this deck, which is kind of wild, but I mean, it makes sense. More filter, more draw, get you out of those clunky too many actions hands, you know, then turn it into a momentum. I'm here for it. Filled with Doubt, of course. Barrier Shield is insanely good. Only 1 Genkai's Guidance surprises me a little bit, but Void Symbol 6-handers with these kind of ratios, probably not building too much. So Genkai's isn't really a winning strategy too often. But Infiltrating Xorhas, I hope that's how it's pronounced, is definitely one to watch out for. Other than that, I love seeing 4 Rifle Arm, 4 Incubating. Pretty crazy, but you know, you got to get your speed reduction somewhere. Void Symbol, still really good at that, even if your character doesn't. We've got 1 of Last Second Rescue, 2 Moment of Normalcy, 2 Nonagon. So those are our really important unique effects. The card draw is really nice here with Battle for Dominance. You know, just more and more card pool clearing that we kind of get to do. We get to remove cards from our card pool. So digging more into that theme is really nice. And yeah, I'm surprised I don't see more Allura. Oh, now we got Porco. I gotta zoom it back out. So then we've got Porco on Fire. Now this is really, I think, the deck to watch out for. The deck I think more people are going to be playing necessarily than maybe the ones that we saw in the finals. But you know, I would put my money on this deck. They went into time and it was a really close game too. TC was at like one every game by the end of turn 3 anyways, but it was a really, really close like semifinal and things like that. And this is probably the deck I would put my money on in an actual tournament setting, in another best of 3 and an untimed best of 3, even stuff like that. Game 1, we really thought, chat was talking, maybe it's time to scoop. There's like no way you can really win. I really don't think he can pull it off after failing to kill like turn 3 or something like that. But every single turn, this deck played 4 attacks, sometimes 5 attacks. And even though it was only dealing like maybe 1 damage through those, it kept doing it and it never took a turn off. So this is a deck that I would be really scared of. This is a play style you really got to have some kind of answer for. Just the amount of damage pump that was getting into the card pool with Titan Armbar and the Jaw Titans Bite both. I was really impressed by. I was really surprised how often we could stack up 3 Jaw Titans Bites, and then just +3 damage is substantial enough when you're looping the teaming with the attack Titans. Adding the barrier shield to the card pool to not count towards progressive for those really late string teamings, super, super important. Also great defensive piece. Only one filled with doubt. All right, this deck's trying to get the game over with, right? 1 moment of normalcy makes sense. Dark Ward's a cool inclusion. Glad to see that one here. Glad to see, it cancels Breaker. Again, you gotta, if you're going to Louisville, I feel like you gotta have some idea for combating this deck, this style of deck. It's so good at just launching attacks every turn, and so many decks that weren't a complete wall Hanji 4 Eyes deck would have folded to it so much sooner. But I also want to point out there's 1 Pact of Wrath in this deck, which I think is super smart. I think that there is enough like attack negates and attack aborts that having a card that can't leave your card pool in the main board is pretty smart. I think that that's really good. You do got to pump it a bit, but again, that hasn't been an issue. So yeah, definitely look out for Porco decks. Finally, we've got Hanji 4 Eyes. Don't let the name of the deck fool you. This one was cool. This one came out of left field. But I took a glance at this and I saw it was like a low attack count, but it didn't click because I didn't read the death rattles, even though it's the first card that was added to the deck. It's right there at the top of the list. But once it clicked to me, once someone mentioned it's like a death rattle deck, I was like, oh, this is sick. This is grinding you out. This is using the stamina from all the damage reduction backups, Titans under orders and 9 Titans, and it's trying to rebuild them with Duplicitous and Beast Titans, Rock Barrage, because guess what? There's 2 attacks that just free build backups for you, and Hanji Zoe 4 Eyes has both of those attuned symbols. So really taking advantage of this, sub-theme, I guess, this synergy of building like crazy strong backups and sitting on them as bonus health. TC himself said he has no idea how this character has so much damage reduction and how he was able to live through so much. And it's true. I mean, we were watching like an average of -9 come down per attack. There's so many attacks where he zeroed it out without even having to like use Hanji and, destroy foundations to ready Hanji over and over. So very awesome stuff. I mean, there's so much here that we've already seen, right? Like greater goal, moment of normalcy, best buddies life gain is basically -1, recoup time every time you gain life, 4 invincible body. I mean, it's just all the DR, right? It's all the good damage reduction, and then all the really good outwit effects because Hanji can build them down. So military tactics, so good for this deck, man. You have to play so many attacks to try and even deal damage. Military tactics, something you can build from your hand face down. Absolutely nuts. We also saw Titan injection get used. Oh my goodness. This deck is super sweet. I think it probably needs just a tiny bit of refinement, but I think TC made this like right before the event. Like this is almost a rough draft. So really cool to see the death rattle play style, you know, the control style kind of come through. I'm a big fan of like the combo with Grove Keepers. I think it's nice to be a little more proactive in how you win the game, but I mean, at some point, this deck is going to be using 9 Titans to double the speed on Duplicitous, you know, and it's going to be hitting you with like 10 low for 6 pokes. With Hanji can pump it, Greater Goal can pump it, right? So if you completely commit out of nowhere, you can be facing like 15 damage moves, and Hanji can pass multiple 7 diffs. So very cool deck. Was really, really nice to see something like this in this tiny environment. But of course, it did lose to Nick Reagan. Nick Reagan's back, everybody. Who's stoked for more Nick Reagan decks, man? After the errata, George, who pioneered the Air Nick Reagan that Let's Talk UVS, including TC, I believe, was all over the last regional. We've got Nick Reagan on the all symbol 60 card deck. It's slim, it's trim, and it's fighting on a whim because you only got 2 shots per turn to hit that true 100. But with 6 cards or 60 cards in the deck, you've got a really good opportunity to do so. And I mean, this deck, it plays like a Yu-Gi-Oh combo deck to me, man. You've got Garnets in the deck and you've got hits in the deck, and you are just wheeling and dealing, and you are looking for it. Every attack that this deck threw was for like 15. It had no problems finding speed and damage. It had no problems passing checks. We're very 6 check heavy. We've got the Dark Interruption to pass those checks. We've got the multiple bites, the world's weakest hunter, the death from above to fix our 5-hander issues. But again, most importantly, it's true 100. If you stack them on top of each other, or you get like a Spirit Gun final with both enhances plus that, it was enough to overcome all of the damage reduction that Hanji was able to put down. You know, being able to punish those big boards with true 100 at pretty much any point in the game is really, really, really big. And when you get to play true 100 from your hand, you get to play around resets pretty easily because Nick doesn't have to tell you what his next enhance is going to be. And after he does the true 100 enhance, then he does the Nick Reagan enhance, you're probably looking at like a 15-15. And if you don't use your reset, he'll just pass and send it. It's worth it, right? So really cool to see some nice intricate sequencing, or at least forced sequencing on the opponent. Patchwork Baby is actually super nuts in this deck, and we didn't actually get to see it, which is sad. But Patchwork Baby is just sitting there chilling as an EX and powerful move that gets incredible stats from itself. So yeah, this one is scary. This one is super scary. It's nice to see that the errata didn't like kill Nick Reagan, but man, this is a gross deck when you see it in action. So maybe these will be popping up in Louisville. I don't know. I think you're more likely to see some Porcos and some Peaks, but this deck, you know, it doesn't even seem too expensive, right? True 100 is probably the most expensive card. 4 of a starter deck card. Patchwork Baby was like a promo everyone could get. Spirit Gun finals, I think, are cheap. So I don't know, man. If you were a fan of Nick Reagan, this is definitely the deck for you. You still get to play the supersonic flights. You have some defense with always cool. You're not completely helpless, but really you are. And I love the inclusion of breaking the cuffs really quick here. You know, these are just stack one big attack. It's a puzzle to see how tall you can build this Jenga machine of a single attack, and you basically get 2 shots per turn to do it. And we saw, you know, as soon as like TC had Invincible Body out, and as soon as he did any enhance, as soon as he called like any bluff that this wasn't gonna get so big, you know, watching George choose to pop the breaking the cuffs, discard Mikasa's admission for it, trigger Science Bros, you know, all these different things. Like, you really got to see like the mad scientist machine come to life, and that was really cool. There's a lot going under the hood of this deck, but for the most part, it's just gonna be slap the attack down, hit true 100 off the top, send it for a bazillion, and that is universes in the year 2025. But what do you guys think? What was your favorite deck? Why did you not play in Ace Arena? What were you doing? What were you so busy doing today? I don't know. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully I read the cards correctly because I can't see. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. I love you guys. Peace out.